Okay, so today we are going to show how to program a BTX communicator with either Hyperterminal, TerraTerm, PuTTY, Procom, any terminal emulation program that you can use on your computer. Most terminal emulation programs that we used prior to Windows XP was Hyperterminal because it actually came on your laptop. After XP went away and they went to Windows 7, Windows 8, Windows 10, it's no longer on your standard laptop. So from there, you've actually got to go out online and find a terminal emulation program of some kind. PuTTY or TerraTerm work really well. They are free out on the internet. You can download them just about anywhere. They work really, really well. So once you get the settings done, which are in your BTX IOM manual, then you connect up to the BTX and press enter. Once you press enter, it's going to pop up with the main menu for the BTX. Very similar to what we did with the other video and the BTX planner software, except the planner software you are just dumping a file into the BTX, where in this case we are live inside the BTX, so we can do some things that we could not do with the BTX planner software. We can do diagnostics and we can do some other radio communication things with the BTX in this mode. So in terminal emulation mode, like we're using with PuTTY here, we're going to go down to the bottom where it says enter selection. You're going to look at the selection down the left hand side, find that number, and you're going to hit enter. So I'm going to go 1 and enter. It's going to take me into my base transceiver address. In this case, again, just like what we talked about with the BTX multi-app planner, the central station is going to give you the unit address that you're going to be using on this particular BTX. In this case, we're going to use our favorite number and enter. It's going to ask you, do you want to erase and reset the entire configuration to default? Now you want to make sure and think about this. If this is a brand new BTX, then it really doesn't matter what I say in here. There's nothing in this BTX to worry about anyway. If this is a BTX that's been sitting on the shelf and this is a spare that you've brought online for whatever reason, then I don't care what was in this file. We're going to hit yes and we're going to erase everything back to default and start from scratch. If for some reason I just came in here and needed to change my unit address because it didn't work with the central station address that they gave me or whatever the case may be, I don't want to hit yes because I don't want to erase all my other settings that I've already done in here. So make sure and think about this before you either hit yes or no. In this case, it's a brand new BTX. I don't really care what was in here before, so I'm going to go ahead and hit yes. We're going to make sure and start from scratch and we'll go from there. Alright, so now you'll see down here at the bottom of the screen we're going to enter our selection. So going to start with configuring our onboard zones. So 2 and enter. It's going to say set onboard zone verification delay. It's either 3 seconds or 25 seconds. Right now it's set for 3 seconds. And then set our relay type, which is right now is under central control. If we were doing security units, then we might do iButton control or something like that. But since we're not doing security, we're not really going to worry about it. So 99 and exit out of any of these menus. Takes us back to the main menu. Number 3, define installed zone cards. So we're going to go 3 and enter. So this is going to ask us how many zone cards we have for a particular type. So how many zone fire cards do I have, or how many security cards do I have? So if I want to go into fire cards, I'm going to go 1 and enter to go into that menu. And I'm going to tell it how many fire cards it's got. Either 1, 2, 5, 14, however many I've got. In this case, I'm just going to go ahead and say I've got 2 on there because actually the BTX that I've got actually has 2 of them in there. So now after I hit enter, it's going to say number of zone cards 2, addresses required 1. That's in addition to the one you've already put in there. So I put in 88. It's also going to take 89 now because I've put in extra zone cards. Alright. Not going to do anything for fire card or security cards, so we're going to go ahead and do 99 and enter. I am going to come back here in a minute and do our some diagnostics comparing our expected versus actual backplane zone configuration report, and kind of show you what happens when we need to do a little bit of troubleshooting on this thing. So I'm going to go 99 and enter. Back to my main menu. So in this case, I'm going to do just a plain Jane fire unit. Most of these other settings I don't really need to worry about, but for here, I'm not going to worry about configuring access control, because this is just a fire unit. I'm not doing security. I'm not doing mass notification on this one, because again, this is a fire unit. I'll come back and do an M&S unit here in a second. And so we're going to skip down to number 6. So go 6 and enter. So on number 6, basically what it did is it took our original option, which was send our troubles during AC fail, and it changed it to don't send troubles during an AC fail. So that setting is really up to you and what you want to do with it. I'm going to go ahead and set it back to what it was. Some of these options it will take you into a separate menu, and then other options will just toggle the option to on or off depending on what's going on with that. And in this case, yep, it just toggled it to on and off, and then I turned it back on again. Number 7. Enclosure tampers. 4-hour battery fault, AC fail, battery faults, tampers, and change fallback destination. So number 1, send enclosure tampers. So right now it's always sent. So we want to disable that, because on my BTX I don't have a tamper switch on the door. If you do, you can go ahead and leave it enabled. But in this case, I'm going to go ahead and do 1 and enter. And now it's going to say never sent. Number 2, 4-hour battery fault. You can go in here and say leave it alone, or you can say not send. So I'm going to go not send, or never sent. These other ones, change AC fail, battery fault, tamper destination, that's more for security stuff. Same thing with change your fallback destination. If we were doing dual communication or something like that with radio as the primary and hardwire as a backup, then we could do that. I am done here though, so 99 and enter. Local audible alert, we can go in here, number 8. So I have options for how I want my audible, my onboard beeper to operate. My favorite is off, but you can set it for basically whatever you'd like. On the BTX, once this thing starts beeping at you, you need to make sure to hold the acknowledge button down for about 3 seconds if you decide not to disable this audible. I'm going to go ahead and do 1 and enter. So now it says currently local audible off. So 99 and enter after that. Okay. Number 9, audio board configuration. Again, this is a fire unit, so I'm going to skip that at the moment. Communicator type, standard, that's fine. If you have Communicator Plus, you would probably know it. There's only a few facilities out there that do Communicator Plus. Plus does not mean that it's better. Only do that if you actually know that you have the Plus protocol enabled in your system. The rest of these settings are more for our live voice M&S type stuff. After that, expansion zones and diagnostics. I can go in and do some diagnostics here in a minute. System reports, keypad configuration administration. That's for if you have security keypads on the BTX. Then we have date and time. So if you decide that you want to change the date and time, then that's fine. Looks like mine is, it's about an hour off, but I'm not going to worry about it right now. You can come in here under 15 and change the time, change the date, whatever you'd like to have. So 99 and enter from there, and it will actually restart the BTX. So whenever you are in the main menu, if you hit 99 and enter, it will tell the BTX we're done with doing our changes. Go ahead and restart, and it will take those changes that you just did. It's going to go and restart the BTX. It will let us know when it's done. If I was watching the BTX zones, I would notice that the zones should be flashing about now. Then once the checking subsystems is passed, then the zones should start acting like normal. They should go out, and there we go. All right. So if I had some diagnostics that I wanted to do on this particular BTX, then there's some options that I can do in here to get into that. So number 3, remember I mentioned number 3 was where I could go in and do some zone card diagnostics. So I could go 3 and enter, or actually I got to do enter first to get back into the menu. Then I can go to our define installed zone cards to get into my diagnostics. So 3 and enter. And then the option for my diagnostics for my zone cards is number 3 again. So go 3 and enter again. And it's going to go through there. It's going to find all the zone cards that could possibly be hooked up to this BTX, whether they are there or not. So if you have zone card trouble and you can't get your zone cards to work, what you can do is come in here to this diagnostics, and it will go out there and look for the cards that it expects to find. In this case, we have unit number 89, which is my first expansion card. It's going to say expected card type fire, detected card type fire, card rev C.3. And then I have a second card in there because I told it it had 2 cards. It's going to go in there and it's going to say expected card type fire, detected card type C.4. Everything else, expected card type none, detected card type none, and I can go all the way down through here. Okay. If I had an expansion zone card that was programmed incorrectly, installed incorrectly, or if I had a backplane that was not addressed properly, then I would see some kind of communication failure to my BTX zone card. I can mimic that with the switches on this BTX. So I just caused a fault on the expansion backplane. So I'm going to go ahead and go back into this option. I'm going to go 3 and enter and make it go out there and look for those zone cards again. Oh. I just caused a fault, but it can still find them. So now what I need to do is I need to reset. The only time it looks at those cards is when it first does a power up. So I changed my unit, my zone card backplane address, but now it's got to go out there and look at it again. We'll give it a second. Checking the subsystem and passed. So I can go enter, get back into my main menu. I can go 3 and enter. Get into my zone card options and go 3 and enter for running my diagnostics again. Alright, so now it's going to go through all those. You probably already saw as it went scrolling by that we have a problem now. So if I come over here and I scroll back up a little bit, I'll see that expected card type is fire, detected card type none. What I did on this BTX that I've got is I actually took the dip switch, the addressing dip switch for the expansion backplane, put it to 0. So now it can no longer find the zone cards. So you can use this as a diagnostics tool to kind of try to figure out what's going on with your expansion cards. If your zones don't seem to be working or something like that, you can come in here, see if the BTX is actually talking to the zone cards. If it is, then you can look at some of the more physical connections, things like that. Maybe the zone cards are, something happened to them, something like that. But in this case, my addressing switch is wrong, so I can see that the BTX couldn't find those cards at all. I can come back in here and say, okay, well, something's physically wrong with the BTX. Switch my address, switch back. Switch my address, switch back to number 1. I should be able to find it again. Okay, so I found my problem, 99 and enter, back out of the menu. Back to my main menu. Okay, so after that I can go 99 and enter, restart the BTX, then do zone downloads from the central station to activate the zones. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to go back in here and we're going to set this BTX up for mass notification settings. So if you were going to be hooking it up to a mass notification panel, doing live voice audio over the air, maybe activating pre-recorded messages, things like that. So I'm going to go and do number 1 and enter. It's going to ask me to change my transceiver address. I'm going to put number 75 in here. Erase and reset the entire BTX configuration to default. Yes, I'm actually going to do that because we're going to start all over. I'm going to wipe it clean. Alright, so now number 2 for configure onboard zones. Again, we can do our onboard delay, which is 3 seconds or 25 seconds. And my relay type, which is currently central control. So that's going to be activating my relays from the central station to activate mass notification. So I'm good to go there. Back to the main menu. Number 3 for define installed zone cards. So again, I can go into number 3. I can tell it how many zone cards I've got. Maybe I've only got 1 in this case. Number 1 for zone cards, and then how many zone cards you've actually got. Alright, 99 and enter. Back to the main menu. Number 4 for configure access control. Again, that's for security. We're not going to worry about that here. Number 5, configure mass notification. So 5 and enter. If you watched the previous video or the other video for programming a BTX with the multi-app planner, these are the exact same settings. It's just in a little bit different format. So number 1, pre-recorded mode. I have none. I have relays. I have relays with K1 active. So I want number 1 for standard relays. Now you see where it says currently relays. 99 and enter. Back to the previous menu. Number 2, pre-recorded timeout. Right now it's 5 minutes. I'm going to go ahead and change it to 10 minutes. So M&S pre-recorded timeout, 1 to 60 minutes, 0 or no timeout. So I'm going to do 10 minutes. Live voice mode, so number 3. I have 2 options, none or live voice with speaker control. So I'm going to do live voice with speaker control. Oh, what happened? It wouldn't let me do that. Why? Well, it wouldn't let me do that because I haven't added an audio board yet. So on the BTX, when you're in this terminal emulation mode, you've actually got to skip ahead a couple of steps to add the audio board before you can do some of these other settings. So we're going to go ahead and go back to our previous main menu. Number 9, if I go skip all the way down to number 9 for audio board configuration, it right now is not installed. So I need to install that before I can do the other options for my mass notification. So I'm going to go 9 and enter. Number 1, toggle audio board. Right now no audio board PCB is installed, so I'm going to go 1 and enter. Now it's installed, and then I'm going to go ahead and do the verification for any audio board issues that I have out there. The BTX will let me know. So I'm going to go ahead and do 2 and enter and enable that also. Okay, so once I've got that, I can go 99 and enter. Back to the main menu. So now I can go back into my mass notification settings, number 5. And I can go into my live voice mode like I tried to do a second ago. So 3 and enter. So now number 1 for live voice with speaker control. Okay, so now live voice is enabled. A lot of people missed that in the programming. Number 4, live voice keep alive timeout. Again, just like I talked about in the other video for the planner, the BTX planner, this is not a setting that most people use. It's either live voice timeout or live voice keep alive timeout, and usually you're going to use number 5 for the regular timeout for your live voice. So go and do number 5. We're going to skip 4, do 5. I'm going to change that to 10 minutes, just like we did our pre-recorded. Or whatever your AHJ would like you to have. Might be 3 minutes, might be 5 minutes, might be 10 minutes, might be 0 for no timeout. You never know. Make sure and ask. Number 6, RMS microphone station not installed. This, again, like I mentioned in the other video, is for the older wheel lock systems that only had one option for a remote microphone. So this was to hook up a remote microphone to the BTX, take that audio through the BTX to the older wheel lock panel that they had out there. But since the newer panels are out, they all have some kind of way to do multiple microphones on the panel. That way you don't have to worry about just one port. So yes, you may have a microphone installed on the system, but no, you don't need to worry about this particular setting. So we can skip that. Number 7, audio K1 relay with live voice. So 7 and enter. Now it's enabled. Again, that's one of those menus that it just toggles it to on. Number 8, live voice PA amplifier settings. So 8 and enter. This again is where your mass notification panel wants its audio levels set. So again, we're fooling the M&S panel into thinking this is just another remote microphone. So we need to know what audio level that the M&S panel wants to see. Most M&S panels want to see number 3, 1 volt peak to peak. If you do live voice from the central station and you notice that the live voice is lower or quieter than the pre-recorded messages, then you can bump that up to 1 volt RMS, and that usually helps quite a bit. But most panels want number 3, 1 volt peak to peak. So we'll go ahead and do that. Then if we have number 9 for group code, if you had a group of panels that the D21 or the central station wanted you to put this BTX into, then they would let you know what that group code number would be. We're not going to worry about that right now. 99 and enter back to the main menu. Okay. So number 6, AC fail and zone faults. Do you want to send your zone faults, your troubles during an AC fail or not? Number 6. So that's another one where it just toggles it. Now it says don't send during an AC fail. So it won't send troubles during an AC fail. It will send alarms, but not troubles. It's up to you on what you want this setting for. Number 7. So go ahead and do 7 and enter. This is most of the time, this is what you're going to go into for your tamper switch. So number 1 is enclosure tampers. Number 2 is your 4-hour battery fault. So I'm going to go ahead and do 1 and enter, and it's going to toggle that to never sent. And then number 2 for 4-hour battery fault, I'm going to go ahead and say 2 on that also and turn that off, because the unit will still send its regular battery fault when the batteries get low. This setting is an FM thing that most people don't use. It would send a battery fault after the unit's been in an AC fail for 4 hours, whether the unit actually has a battery fault or not. Most people don't really use that. It's really up to you and your AHJ on what you want to do there. So number 3 and 4 we're not going to worry about. That's more security stuff. So 99 and enter here. Alright, back to our main menu. Unit status reporting, number 7 is what we just did. So number 8 for local audible alert. So 8 and enter. Do I want my onboard beeper to scream at me? Yes or no? In my case, I don't want it to, so I'm going to say number 1 off. So now it says local audible off. 99 and enter. Back to the main menu. Number 9 we already did. That's our audio board, so we don't need to do that again. Number 10. Number 10 is one that people skip a lot. They don't realize what's going on in here, and then they get no replies when they try to do live voice from the central station. So let's go ahead and do number 10. Most of this stuff's already set up for you. You don't really have to worry about number 1 for the communicator type, which is going to be standard. Central comm behavior, number 2 is primary only. Number 3, central communication, primary FSK radio, secondary none. That's fine. But the other option for central live voice, that's the one that everybody always misses. So we need to have that primary changed away from none. So we're going to go 3 and enter. And it's going to take us to another menu where it says primary communication mode FSK radio and primary live voice mode right now is none. So we've got to do 2 and enter. And do I want to do voice radio or voice hardwired? I'm going to do voice radios. Everything I'm doing with this unit is going to be radio. Alright, so now it says voice radio. So now I can back up, 99 and enter. One more time back to my main menu. And that looks pretty good there. So number 11, zone expansion configuration and diagnostics. That's typically something we do in testing for the manufacturing department, not necessarily something you guys need to worry about. If you need to do diagnostics, typically you're going to do it up under number 3 like I did before with your zone cards. Keypad configuration and administration, number 13, you're not doing security stuff, so we're not going to worry about it in this case. Date and time, if you feel like changing those, you can. And after that, we are done. So 99 and enter. It's going to restart the BTX. Remember, as the BTX is powered up, the zones do not do anything until you do a zone download from the central station. So even though I've gone in and programmed some of this stuff, the zones still will not do anything. You need to make sure and call the central station up, tell them to do a zone download to unit number, in this case, number 75 and number 76. They need to make sure and do that so that they enable the zones from the central station. Then you can do testing on your zones and get alarms and troubles back to the central station. All right, our system has passed and we are done. Again, if you have any questions on programming a BTX, either in fire or mass notification settings, give us a call at Monaco, area code 509-926-6277.